The new Michael teaser trailer wastes no time tapping into nostalgia, but nostalgia alone can't carry a story this massive.
This story comes with massive emotional weight and global expectations, but with the reported 3.5-hour running time, reshoots, and family involvement behind the scenes, the teaser trailer raises real questions about how good the final film will actually be.
The trailer gives us just enough to wonder if the film is ready to confront the truth or just recreate the legend.
Will this be a bold biopic or a controlled legacy piece? Let's break down what we saw and what it might really mean.
I'm Heit.
And I'm Cheri.
And you've discovered Axiom Amnesia.
We want to thank all of the supporters who helped to make this video possible. If you want your name to appear alongside these contributors, make a one-time donation via Cash App, or you can head on over to patreon.com/axiomamnesia to enjoy all of the benefits of becoming a monthly subscriber.
So, yeah, I don't think there'll be any spoilers in this one.
Because we're just going to have basically speculations instead of spoilers. But just so you know, the film is actually due for release in April of 2026, April 24th to be exact. And right now we're in the month of November 2025. Actually, the film was supposed to come out like in the last quarter of 2025 and it got pushed back. So I don't know what to think. Is it that they said that the film at one point was like 4 hours long. So obviously they needed to cut some things, change some things.
Obviously.
Well, I shouldn't say obviously. Well, to get people to go to the theater for a 4-hour film is just a tough
It's
sell.
Michael Jackson, though.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Michael Jackson does it. The trailer had over 100 million views, the teaser trailer, in the first day.
Yeah,
I'm here for people to watch a 4-hour movie on Michael Jackson.
You'd have to have like an intermission.
It's not like it's Beyonce or something. It's not like it's Beyonce or Taylor Swift.
Right. I mean, I'm just thinking it'll have to be like the old days where maybe like a live performance where those might have lasted 4 hours and then you'd have an intermission after the first 2 hours, something like that. But anyway, they say that at the last check, it was about 3.5 hours long. And so we've been recently to some 3-hour long movies. One of them was Nuremberg. By the way, guys, if you haven't seen Nuremberg, we were lucky enough to see it in an early release a few months before it actually came out. It's currently in theaters right now. And I'm sure maybe if you're watching this later, it might even be on streaming or something. But it was really good. But another long one we saw was, what was the Kevin Costner one we went?
American something.
Yeah. Anyway, it was supposed to be this 3-part film that, and it didn't work. Like
Horizon.
Horizon. Yes. I thought the first part was, and it just didn't make it. So
what they wanted to do too was, I think, and maybe it was just people talking about it, was playing both wickets, and then giving an intermission in between.
Yes, because we also this month do have Wicked coming out. In fact, Wicked is coming out next week. And so we are going to see that, and we're going to be covering it right here on this channel. After I saw the first part to Wicked, I did want to see part 2. But rather than the notion of seeing it the same night, I would love to have processed it as the first half by itself. But I just didn't want to wait a year. So if we could have, the idea that Kevin Costner had for Horizon, the first one comes out, another movie comes out in 2 months, I think that would have been perfect, but it just didn't work for him. He didn't get enough sales on that first part to carry it.
Come on.
But with Wicked, I feel like, there was a lot of buzz. So maybe 3 months after the film debuts, you could have done the second half. But with this one, I mean, it's just going to be long. I'm here for it. You just got to know that it's going to be a long one. But it better be worth it, right? But I think the hard part is giving you the music and the person. That's the hardest part because, Michael Jackson was a very complex character.
Yeah, but I only care about the music, so just give it. I think you could satisfy a lot of people if you just show basically the making of the music. You know what I'm saying? Because people just love Michael Jackson that much.
Yeah, but then is that like a documentary, or does that become?
No, it's a biopic, right?
Because I have to say, the Whitney Houston one that they put out, that starred the girl from, oh my gosh, I can't think of the movie right now. Yeah, no, not the Yaya one. The Yaya one was okay. The more recent one that they did that had all the music that Clive Davis had backed starred the lady from that horror.
Naomi Ackie.
Yeah. And she was from the horror movie that we watched that we really wanted to cover again. You know, the one where they go off to the island and they're killing the people and stuff.
Blink Twice,
yes. So I was just really, really disappointed with that film because I am a Whitney Houston super fan. So I know all of these live performances by heart. And you and I were laughing the other day because of the fact that, you know, that I knew there was this Whitney Houston, Didn't We Almost Have It All video. There isn't an actual video of the album version, right? So the video is a live version of her in New York, right? And I've seen that video, what I would probably say is thousands of times because I was a kid when it came out.
Saratoga.
Okay, Saratoga, New York. And so I was a kid when it came out and I know every body movement, every run, and it's disappointing when you're the super fan and you realize that they missed the mark. And that's the piece that I don't want them to do to such a wonderful icon, Michael Jackson.
Well, you can't be Michael Jackson, right? Because Michael Jackson was part body movement. So we do have this popular impersonator, Fabio Jackson, who I never really watch reactions or talk about people's reactions, react to the reactions. But he reacted to the trailer. And it just, everybody talk about how he's upset, he's jealous, he looks stunned and all that stuff too. Because, you know, he looks like him and everything, right? And I don't know if it's how he become a Jackson. But anyway.
And just because we have so little footage, just for full disclosure, we did tap into Thriller 40. If you haven't seen Thriller 40, that movie, you know, to give you guys some visuals, just so you know, while we talk about this. Yeah, I did see those reports about the impersonator. And, you know what I'm saying? I don't know what to think, but I feel like they didn't give us really enough because we've seen this trailer, but yeah.
Yeah, that's why they call it a teaser trailer, right? So they just putting it out to let you know, and then they know it's going to work because of the sheer number of views.
Yeah, I mean, it did work, right?
Want us to cover your favorite movie ASAP? A one-time contribution of just $50 or more to Axiom Amnesia gets you a deep dive on demand, a 30-minute discussion on any film you choose.
It's easy. Step 1, send $50 via our website, axiom.app, where you can pay via card, Apple Pay, or you can pay directly via Cash App at $Axiom Amnesia. See the links below. Step 2, tell us your movie, email, the name you want to appear on screen, and what kind of deep dive you want. General, a specific character, a particular aspect of the film, etc. Step 3, watch your deep dive on demand with your name listed as executive producer.
Lock in your deep dive on demand today and hurry. Spots are limited.
This offer is not valid for filmmakers or distributors. Subject to availability and terms apply.
So let's talk about the cast, right? We have Jafar Jackson, who plays Michael Jackson as the adult. Jafar is actually Michael Jackson's nephew, okay? So we got family in this mix already. We also have
Jermaine's son, right?
Yeah, Jermaine's son, I think so. And we have Giuliano Valdi as young Michael, Coleman Domingo as Joe Jackson. I can't wait to see Coleman Domingo as Joe Jackson, and Nia Long. You know, our beloved Nia Long as Katherine Jackson, who's Michael's mother. So these Michael's mother and father, they're being played by like two power hitter actors. And then,
so I thought that was possibly Quincy Jones on the trailer, and it was Joe Jackson probably, because I'm like, I know that voice.
Well, Kendrick Sampson is playing Quincy Jones, and I don't know. I don't feel like that was Coleman Domingo in the trailer, but we'll see when we analyze it. We'll look. And then we have Kat Graham as Diana Ross, and Lorenz Tate is going to play Barry Gordy, and Derek Luke has recently signed on as Johnny Cochran. So those are the famous people. There are obviously lots of other people because you got all the Jackson family members and whatever in here. So can't wait to see how that all turns out. But we should just go ahead and talk more about the background. But first, let us talk about our new merch. Think for yourself, question everything, and break free from the so-called truths that they want you to accept. The Axiom Amnesia collection is here. Bold logo t-shirts and hoodies designed for thinkers who refuse to settle for assumptions. stand out and make a statement. Show the world you don't just go along, you think critically. Plus, it's a great way to support the channel and all that we do here and just keep this work going. So get yours today. The link's in the description, or you can visit us anytime at axiom.app. So for the background, this film is directed by Antoine Fuqua. And, you know, he's a well-known director. He's done lots of stuff in the past. But Antoine Fuqua actually has a connection to Motown. For those of you who might be too young to know, Michael Jackson, when he got his start with the Jackson 5, they were on the Motown record label, which was out of Detroit. Berry Gordy was the owner or whatever. So this is Antoine Fuqua, the director's connection to Motown. Harvey Fuqua, who was this songwriter and a singer and a record producer, and he was a record label executive, he actually founded the seminal R&B doo-wop group, the Moonglows, in the 1950s. He's notable as one of the key figures in the development of the Motown label in Detroit, Michigan, and his group gave Marvin Gaye a start in his music career. And Fuqua and his wife at the time, Gwen Gordy, hello, the sister of Berry Gordy, distributed a Motown hit single, and they had a record label called Anna Records, and then Fuqua later sold Anna Records to Gwen's brother Berry Gordy, you know that name, and then became a songwriter and executive at Motown. So I would think if somebody's going to do this with care too, this personal connection through his own very own uncle that Antoine Fuqua has, you know, I would think give him some favor. So we have the nephew of, you know, Michael Jackson himself playing Michael Jackson. And then the director is the nephew of one of the big Motown executives.
Yeah, but who the hell is the Moonglows?
Well, I think that's less important than the fact that he helped to start. He was married to Berry Gordy's sister, and he helped to basically, you know, start and keep Motown
and
going.
Distribute Motown, yeah.
So that is a connection there. The film was written by John Logan, and so he's experienced in biopics. I think John Logan did the one for Freddie Mercury. I forgot the name of the movie, but yeah. And then a lot of people feel like Jafar Jackson being cast as Michael Jackson gives the film like this authenticity. I will say the voices I've heard, Bohemian Rhapsody, that movie, yes. The voices I heard here, like representing Michael, it really did kind of sound like Michael Jackson. And this is his family member. The DNA is all there, so you know. But anyway, so now we're just waiting on the film to happen, and the script, they claim, because see, the big question that people have about this is whether or not it's actually going to involve all of the controversies of his life, or is it just going to be music heavy and Michael Jackson didn't have a childhood heavy and glaze over some of the problems and issues in his life. But like you had pointed out earlier, you know, this trailer did break Lionsgate's records and genre viewership records and whatever. And they're also thinking about a sequel. I'm like, look, it took y'all forever to just get the movie out. What kind of sequel could we be talking about?
I know. How you have a sequel to somebody's life? They're going to show him in heaven?
Shut up.
What the world?
So I guess without further ado, let us watch this trailer and see what we think.
I know you've been waiting a long time for this.
So the first thing I think about it is that sucker was very short.
Like.
Who does he sound like?
Richard T. Jones.
The tracks are made. The songs are ready.
That's the voice.
T. Jones. Okay, the guy who played Mike in Why Did I Get Married? Okay. Well.
Yeah. So the first thing I hear, you know, you put the headphones on and you hear Mama Side, Mama Side, Mama Side, right? I immediately think of Soul Makossa, just immediately, because that is the song that everybody and their mama really used by Manu Dibango. So yeah, but I don't think anybody paid for it. But you know, that song is just sample, and they say that that's what, you know, he was going for here, basically. Michael Jackson.
Well,
I have a video on that on another channel, but yeah.
Why don't we link that in the description and y'all can watch that video too, right? Okay, so the first thing I thought was it was very short and I felt like it just didn't give me much.
Let's take it from the top.
Except you took clips to try to make it like, this is your life story.
This is your story.
Tell your life story, like as if this movie is going to be from Michael Jackson's mouth himself, right?
Honor your past.
So you wanna be starting something?
How if he was making his story, how he would tell his own story, right? Because we hear Quincy Jackson say to him, this is your story. And, you know, I know you've been waiting a long time. The tracks are made. The songs are ready, right? So he's saying that to Michael, but he's saying it to us as an audience too, which is kind of brilliant, right?
And embrace the future.
Yeah, but I think but see, that's the entendre part of it. I don't know how many levels deep. But you have like when every artist, they talk about when they're making music and stuff, you know, that's just basically them telling their story. And it's probably at a portion coming out of the Jackson 5 and probably after Off the Wall. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where it's like now you get some creative direction and stuff. I think that's where they're going with that, but we'll see.
That's what people want.
Yeah, because I mean, I've heard that this is supposed to take him from young age. So I think Jackson 5, like you said, all the way up through like the way he's dressed, what I see of him on stage, at least we know it gets us through the 90s, maybe the early 2000s, because, you know, he went through that era where he was wearing the black and white all the time. His hair was in the longer ponytail and whatever.
And he was light-skinned.
And yeah, and he had his vitiligo was apparent at that point.
That.
Yes. So that's really, I feel like all we get. But back to the idea, I know you've been waiting a long time. Michael Jackson died in 2009. And here we are, like 16 years after his death. And people who loved Michael Jackson their whole life, like Michael Jackson obviously is older than I am. So when I was a kid, he was big, but he was already like past Jackson 5 age by the time I got to the age of like awareness of, you know, what is music, what is good music. You know, we're talking about Thriller, maybe Off the Wall. I remember hearing some songs on the radio from Off the Wall, but Thriller was like the big thing. And I was glad that this felt Thriller heavy because the songs that we heard are songs from Thriller. What, you know, and I'm assuming that they have all the songs, that they're able to just like look, because you know how sometimes it is with the biopics that you don't get all of the songs, right? You know, or they have to be resung, or they're just, I don't even know, you don't get any music sometimes.
I don't know, because like he owned them at some point, and I think the estate sold off some of the catalog. I don't know if they just sold it or just temporarily gave rights to someone else, you know, because they don't really go into the deal. They just be like, oh, so-and-so sold this catalog, and we don't really know what that means.
Right.
But yeah, but I'm pretty sure that's a big part of it. But I think that there will be the controversies in there. But if it's from the perspective of the family or, you know, anybody who is a Michael Jackson fan, then it's probably going to show what happened in terms of he was not found guilty of any of that crazy stuff. You know what I'm saying? So like we, as a journalist, you will report that as truth, that this person was not guilty of these charges. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So even if you were filming it or creating a film from a supposed objective standpoint, then I think you would have to show it that way instead of trying to show it as, not have to, but you know what I'm saying.
It would be prudent to show it that way because that is the reality. That is the truth and the fact of what happened, that he was not convicted.
Unless you somehow pulled out a video of something and then you're like, all right, despite what the verdict was, we know this. Yeah.
So a few questions that maybe I don't know, we can try to flesh out some of what we saw in this trailer. What do you think that the trailer suggests about like Antoine Fuqua's visual direction? And like, do you think it's going to be heavily like concert kind of, or are we going to get more personal things, or both? You know,
it will have to be both if they was trying to get a 4-hour movie. But just think about, if it was a 4-hour movie, just think about all the iconic songs though. And you know how when they did the New Edition story, we wanted all those moments. They showed the making of the album covers and those sorts of things. All of these videos, we want to see that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Right. So that has to be a big portion. And with me, I want to see you going into the studio making this stuff. I think it's maybe the 20th anniversary of Thriller album, and you have like commentary of them explaining these songs and everything, right? So you have that. If you could just incorporate those things, and I'm sure you got all these stories of how this stuff was made, right? And then you got the stuff with Teddy Riley explaining how it worked. One of the things they mentioned in the trailer was, just the thing of, oh, don't move your feet in here, basically, right?
But remember, in here, keep those feet still, my man.
Right.
But you could see footage now of him in the studio stomping his feet and stuff, and the sound is coming through the microphone and mystical. He done.
Yeah.
He used to do that same thing, right? But yeah, so if we got all these stories and I want to see them in the film, like I don't care what he was doing when he was in his house alone. That's not Michael Jackson I know and want to know, really.
Well, okay, so I'm going to push back a little and I'm going to say I do care because I feel like that is part of what feeds into the Michael Jackson we see that's in the music.
Q, can you lower the lights for me, please?
Okay.
If we believe that he's not simply just playing some character, if we believe that these songs are written from some place of understanding, some place of how he really feels, then what you're going through in your personal life can inform the art that you put out there. And so I do care about it, but not from a salacious perspective. Like, in other words, I don't care about which girl you dated or didn't date or whoever you dated, right?
If you got Billie Jean, you might have to. But see, that was the problem you had with one of those Whitney Houston movies, where everybody talking about this stuff is all out of order because they're trying to tell a story in that same sort of narrative way. So the songs and the albums and everything don't go together because we're trying to say because of this in his life, they made this, and then trying to put it into a narrative.
Well, this is why I feel like we need to have a serious conversation about having a miniseries versus just a feature film. And if you're having a feature film, I think you do these icons, whether it's Aretha Franklin, Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson, any of these people, you do them a disservice by trying to get their life condensed and their music and their art and their fame and all of these aspects condensed down into one film. But what you got to do, I feel like, is either have your miniseries, because I think about like the Jacksons and American Dream miniseries. That was an amazing miniseries back in the day. I think it came out in 1992. But when you think about that, that is one thing. But then you can have a film about a particular aspect of a person's life, but you have to make it clear this is not all encompassing. This is, and they kind of did that with Whitney Houston because they had like Whitney and Bobby and it was only supposed to be about their relationship, and they stuck to that, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Or, if you had a Michael Jackson movie that was only about the making of Thriller. So we're not going into the past. We're not going into the future from that point. We're only talking about the making of Thriller. Then maybe you could get it to 2 and 2.5 hours. But when you're trying to be like, oh yeah, he started out when he was 4 years old dancing and all the way up through, the end, it just can't happen in that time frame.
Okay, but you're looking at it from a fan perspective. You got to look at it like the capitalist, like the business person. How much money would you make doing a series versus a movie that goes to theaters, right?
Well, which is why I'm in favor of a film, but the film needs to have a narrow focus.
Yeah. So this the only way too that we can all see something, because if we got series, we know how it's all broken up into these different streaming services. Now they ruin that, right? There is no one thing or one singular experience that we all have, like when we watch Roots too. You know what I'm saying? In a series form,
right?
But if you did do multiple films, let's say you do, the kids in Jackson 5, the 70s, Off the Wall, and Ben, and whatever stuff, and then you do, maybe Thriller Bad, and then the 90s and on, right? But each one a separate movie, then we all can see it, but you have to have money and go to the theaters to see it too at the same time. But as we know, and everybody on YouTube knows, when you do those series like that, once you do the part 2, part 3, the views go down.
Yes.
Right? So the later years will get less.
Which is, but what I think is that we have kind of figured out a way to do it where it's never a part one. It's all encompassing in one part. But, on our other channel.
But you get tired of it. That's why.
On our other channel, though, we do have 20 plus videos on a single film. Well, 2 films, right? Because there was a sequel. So 20 plus videos on 2 films that are, the first and a sequel. But those are not part 1, part 2, part 3. They are very narrowly focused on a particular aspect of that film, and it is the gift that continues to give for us on that channel. And we've also seen that on one of our other channels with a different movie that we probably have almost as many videos, maybe at least 15 to 20 videos on one film.
Yeah, but
but we don't sell it as this is part 23. It's
right,
not
so,
part 23.
It's
it
not
can
about
stand
it being
alone.
parts. If you got, let's say, 500 million Michael Jackson fans, right, who would go watch a movie, you watch the trailer, you're like, I want to see this, and then you see one. Once the second one come, everybody's not going to be like, ooh, have this thirst of Michael Jackson content or Michael Jackson film. That's why the second movie ain't going to do as well. Maybe it'll do as well. But once you get to the third or the fourth, you know what I'm saying? But that's just how it goes, because we want the stuff now, and once you get it, then it kind of diminish the return on that.
Because there's an unpredictability about how much you'll actually like it, right? So I think it's rare that the second part does better or is as good as the first part. We talked about this actually last week in the video that we did where we talked about Wicked. And my concern that I love the first Wicked so much that I cannot absolutely imagine how part 2 will not be a disappointment to me, because how could it be better than the first part? And I love the first part so much. And I think that this is what happens. So naturally, in most cases, you're going to have people who were disappointed with the first part, disappointed with that first film you put out.
The second one, yeah.
And then they don't go to see the second one, or or they weren't a super fan or whatever. So, the first one gave them their fix that they needed, plus the hype that goes into the first one. And so the hype in some things is like, your marketing or whatever that leads up to it. Okay, great. But then you have films that's like seriously take off and build their own kind of viral hype, grassroots hype after the film already comes out. I think Sinners is a really good example of that within the last year, right? I mean, people wanted to see Sinners, but then Sinners really blew up.
One, right?
Say what?
I say, but you can't do another one because it's gonna ruin it, right?
Yeah.
If it's not as good.
And we talked about that, yeah.
We do have the films like, I don't know, the Harry Potter, Twilight, Star Wars, you know, that just have this crazy James Bond
They have their cult
films.
following.
Yeah.
And that's that. And they know they're going to make money off of it, and they just put it out every so often. And to some extent, that's kind of what happened with some of the movies we were talking about, where we've done 20 videos on one movie. It is the cult following that is, they have found their tribe. This is what they want to see and talk about. And I think it's very difficult. It's just less money. It's less money. The cult is less money, but it's money, right? Than the money that Sinners made worldwide,
Right. So one thing that a lot of people did bring up after watching this is that, he didn't look like Michael Jackson.
Bruh.
And people always bring this up with biopics, right?
Uh-huh.
And I'm just like, yeah, but I don't watch it for them to look like it. It helps if they look like them, right? But Pursuit of Happiness, he didn't look like Garner.
Yes, but when you know what the person looks like, it does make somewhat of a difference. But let me just set before you the fact that Denzel Washington looks absolutely nothing like Malcolm X. But he was so good as an actor in that role that it suspended our disbelief that he wasn't. He was absolutely Malcolm X when we saw him. And in fact, didn't we see, isn't there a meme of a guy who has Denzel Washington as Malcolm X as his tattoo?
Oh,
and it says Malcolm X. But yeah, I mean, so I think it depends on the actor, but is Jafar Jackson that good of an actor? And then I feel like Michael Jackson, all right. So for those of you who were not around at this time, you have the young child Michael Jackson, and I'm just going to focus on his nose because that's the part where I think there was the most plastic surgery and the most difference besides his skin tone. So you have Michael Jackson, little kid, wide nose, right? Then you have the off the wall Michael Jackson where he's had some, something has been done. Clearly, he's still brown skin, okay? Then you have the Thriller Michael Jackson where the nose is a little thinner and also where the skin is a little bit lighter, but he's still brown. He's still brown. And then you get Bad, which comes out later. And Bad, you know, his vitiligo has taken over. And I think in interviews, he talks about that he started to take a drug that would just make the skin all one color, which it went to the light color, right? So he kind of became pigmentless in a way. And that's the Michael Jackson we saw when Bad came out. But if you're not old enough to remember, it was a huge difference between Bad and Thriller and the Michael Jackson we saw in between. Because when Bad came out, it was a video where it was like, stop the presses. The Bad video is debuting. It was one of these theatrical type of videos where it was, I don't know, 30 minutes long, 20 minutes long, whatever. And then we see Michael Jackson and we're like, wait, what? Who is this? This is, you know, so there was a lot of madness and stuff going on. See, you can accept it if you were probably born in 2000 or 90.
Right, but
you know, you don't understand.
Yeah, but I'm sure they're going to show the progress in color. But I just think that when I watch these films of people I know, I just want the archetype of the person. Because I think there was the one about the Jordan shoes. Or I think it was about Nike and them signing Jordan. And I don't think the Jordan was Jordan, but it was served the purpose for the movie, right? Or even anytime they have a Tupac or, you know what I'm saying? Then I just know, hey, the dude got the glove on, he got the curl, you know what I'm saying? He got the jacket, he got the socks. I know that is Michael Jackson. What I think is
interesting is that the children of the Jacksons look like what they got plastic surgery to look like and what they wore those Jerry curls to look like.
Yeah.
Which is just interesting to me.
So we're going to
that what you will.
Yeah, so we're covering the Oscar Grant film, right? And what I know of Oscar Grant,
Fruitvale Station,
right? When it happened, you know, all we got was a few pictures of Oscar Grant, but Michael B. Jordan doesn't look like him. But he in the film is dressed in these outfits that we saw Oscar Grant in, even though we all saw his face and everything. But it's certain scenes in the film where I'm like, oh, I see him portraying Oscar Grant, right? So, but of course, it's so hard to try to think about wax figures. People can't even get wax figures right, and you want to get somebody with an actual face to look like the person.
So I asked myself, like, okay, they put a prosthetic on Jafar to try to look like he had a wider nose. Would it have been a mistake to give Jafar even more deep makeup for the earlier years?
You mean to darken him?
Yes. Would that have been a mistake? We saw this with Zoe Saldana trying to play Nina Simone, and it did not land well. But, you know, and I don't mean like, because Michael Jackson wasn't really deeply brown. He was brown, you know, even a little makeup could have made Jafar a little bit darker, and it maybe they could have played with the lighting where he actually looked more like Michael, you know. But it's hard to make Jafar, who looks like what Michael Jackson looked like toward, you know, after the plastic surgery, to look like him before. You know, that's not necessarily an easy thing to do. But it's probably
much easier to add than to take away.
Yeah, so that's true too.
So are we going to be disappointed by the dancing and the singing because it's Michael Jackson? And, you know, I joked about Beyonce earlier.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody played Beyonce and they can't pull off the dancing and stuff like Beyonce, people going to be upset.
Yeah.
About it.
Well, and we might as well just say what people always say about Beyonce, which is that she is that generation's, or they would use the term this generation's Michael Jackson. Like, I love Beyonce to a certain extent. I had my era where I was, you know, a Beyonce stan, very much so. But like, to me, it's no comparison, because I don't think people who say that realize how big Michael Jackson was. And the only comparison that I really think prior to that might have been like the Beatles. You know what I mean? And actually he did work with Paul McCartney a little bit. But I think that because it's not taking into account what it took to be that big at that time, and also to have all eyes focused on you. Right now we have a lot of famous people. Back then there were far fewer famous people.
Yeah, Michael Jackson was one person everybody in the world knew and loved, right? So just recently, it kind of came out somewhat about how Michael Jackson and them, they had to get, protection in Brazil when they were filming They Don't Care About Us, or whatever the name of that song is, right?
Uh-huh.
But they just did it because he's Michael Jackson. You really have to ask really or pay for protection. He's Michael Jackson. So the cats who was running the favela just loved him. So of course you can film the video and you don't have to worry about anything and have our protection.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Yes. Will we be disappointed in the dancing and the singing?
I think that yes, we're going to be disappointed in the dancing. I don't think there's a way to not be disappointed in the dancing and the singing, because even the best just aren't as good as Michael Jackson. Even Michael Jackson later is not as good as Michael Jackson earlier, you know?
There was a portion in the trailer when they show the kids and I'm like, is that AI? It's real quick. They show it. And I'm like, wait, you're doing some AI stuff in here. But with one good thing we do have is these algorithms that can kind of separate the music from the vocals, right? So the thing is, when you got the masters, you have all the stems, right? So you can get his studio performances, the acapellas that you can put into the film. But with the live performances and things like that, you don't necessarily get that. But some of this advancements in machine learning allows you to separate the vocals from the music. So then we can possibly get that. So, you know, like if you want to go back and listen to, you know, some Whitney Houston acapella vocals from live performances, you can do that. And I'm thinking that maybe if they utilize that technology, then, you know, and the lip syncing is good enough, then we can have the pure vocals from when this stuff actually happened.
That would be good. That would be very cool to have.
And it's not like you're recreating the voice or anything. You're just taking the bits from what's there and reorganizing them in a sense. Right.
Another thing I wanted to bring up is like because, you know, people have done a ton of documentaries, some different biopics and unauthorized coverages of Michael Jackson and his life, right? And even back to the idea of the miniseries, The Jacksons, An American Dream, and all of that, what I feel like happened, because as you guys know, Michael Jackson comes from a huge family. And so when you have double digit numbers of kids, or maybe it was like only nine, I don't remember. But anyway, a bunch of kids, right? And him and his brothers were famous. And of course, we know Janet Jackson and LaToya and Rebe and all that, right? So there are people who would vie for their own spotlight in these films. And I feel like that's a little bit what happened with The Jacksons and American Dream, because when that story was told, let's just keep it 100, people cared about Michael Jackson. People cared about Janet Jackson, because those were really the two most famous Jacksons. And those were the people that folks were interested in at that time, because by 92, Janet had struck out on her own and was famous as a singer and, you know, whatnot in her own right, an actress. And so they cared about these two Jacksons who seemed to be the least interested in being portrayed in this movie. So, but then you got all of the other siblings who seem varying degrees of thirst for their own attention that they never really got.
You also had Jermaine and LaToya, right? So they kind of had some successful careers too.
And Rebe, I mean, Centipede, you know.
Yeah.
You know, so they each had some levels of success. I mean, Jermaine Jackson has, at the time, a duet with Whitney Houston, very early on. That is, you know, Nobody Loves Me Like You Do, a great song, you know. So he had a few hits, Jermaine did. And I mean, aside from Michael, Jermaine was like the number 2 Jackson, right? He, the male
3,
Jackson.
Right?
He was number 3 behind Janet.
Or
as
was
far as
LaToya before Jermaine?
LaToya, I feel like, was after Jermaine. Because Jermaine was making stuff in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah, but I'm talking about in terms of popularity and celebrity, right?
Jermaine was definitely more famous.
Okay.
And then LaToya, you saw her kind of coming out, but not, she did some music a little bit. But then in the 80s and into the 90s, then, you know, you see her posing in Playboy and doing all kind of attention-seeking sort of behaviors. And, you know, allegedly, or maybe it was proven, I don't know, that, you know, she'd married some guy and was in some type of, you know, DV relationship. And so it was, you know, tough for her in her life. So that may have been why she did some of the stuff she did. But
for those of you who don't know, you should visit axiom.app and you'll be able to look at all of the recent videos across all of our channels. And I'm putting that on the screen right now just so y'all can see it and see what it looks like, because there are a ton of videos that are over there. And also, I think that there are at least about 100 exclusive videos that are available for our Patreon members and our YouTube members. So, if you're interested in more of our content, as I've seen many of you binge watching, be sure to check those things out.
So in case they're listening, they still have time to edit this film. So maybe we can influence them. There needs to be something about Rockwell. Somebody's watching me. Something. That's all.
For those of you who don't know, go ahead and Google Somebody's Watching Me Rockwell and watch the video on YouTube. So why do you think that?
What? Because he was actually singing on it.
I mean, yeah, he sung on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like kind of when we watch the documentary of Luther and you're like, this boy was on all these songs.
Yeah, he was.
You know what I'm saying? But his Michael Jackson celebrity was so big and he had such big hits. I don't think they're going to really get around to talking about things like that.
So then does it belong? I mean, because to me, that's like one of the small pebbles. And then if we fill up the jar with small pebbles, then do we overlook the stuff that's
No,
big?
that's why it should be 4 hours.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The small pebbles, like you were saying, is what make up the big ones. Think about it. What type of person makes Man in the Mirror the man who goes with Jermaine and gets on Rockwell's because of probably who he's related to, but still.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That contributes to him. Like, think about it. He don't want to do the movie. He don't want to work with his brothers. But he's working with Rockwell.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And to my point about his siblings, I'll just say that, if there's family involvement in them saying what they think, I do think a person's family should be able to be the ones to kind of say what craft the image and everything. But I feel like it's different when the family members are not in competition with that person on some level, right? So it's like, Biggie's mom or Tupac's mom deciding something about their songs is very different than people who you were in a childhood group with and that you competed with for attention.
You told me stories of parent assembly rivalries. So,
but I think it's different when you're in the same category, right? It's different when it's different when like Jermaine wanted to be Michael, right? It's different because what you would want in there is like how you were in the room when this happened and how you influence. And that may not be objectively true, even though you feel like you should be there. Maybe you shouldn't, versus Tupac or Biggie's mom talking about something, they're not trying to be front and center. Now, we haven't seen the film. We don't know how much is actually going to make it or what they wanted in there.
But you do have to get stories from the people who were there too, right? So let's say I'm a collaborator with Michael Jackson or like Teddy Riley, right? Then you still, and I'm in competition with them or whatever artist who's doing a song with them, right? Who's going to put the stories out, or I just want to be bigger because I'm the producer and he's the artist, the featured artist or lead artist. The story comes from someone who has their own motives too, to make themselves look a certain way. And, so
what I think would be amazing is if they had a story of like the people or if people would be interested enough in the stories of people who weren't the chosen ones, because I think it is hard. It probably is very difficult for Michael Jackson's brothers to not be like the special one, to not be the one that would be highlighted, that he's the one who was chosen. Just like I'm sure for Solange, there's an element of it that Beyonce is your sister. And of course she loves you when you love your sister, but then there's that competition piece there when you all tried to do the same things.
It's one of those tortured souls, tormented soul.
Yeah.
And
I think it's a little different for the girls, the Jackson girls, but maybe they compare themselves because both of the other girls did music to Janet in some way. But I think that may be why Janet and Michael seem to have not, I won't say they weren't close to their siblings in adulthood, but like they kind of went off into a corner and did their own thing. So that's what I'll say. But I do think those stories would be very interesting. Look, if Solange wrote a book, I would buy it. I would read it. I think it would be very fascinating because
but
what happens when you're not the chosen child? What happens?
Well, you
what
can't
is the
talk
result?
about that, right? You have to save face for yourself, but you also have a group of people who be mad at you because they will see something you say as slight to the person who they idolize.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably why when they're real big, we don't get something like that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, because we also saw it like too, like with Aretha Franklin and her sister, they both wrote songs, they both sang, but Aretha Franklin and versus Carolyn is just no competition. But Carolyn was writing some of them hits that just was banging.
Yeah. But like we could do it with Tony Rock. He could tell us some things, and one of the Wayans brothers, Sean, because if you look anywhere, everybody's just talking about how Sean is just basically their least favorite. You know, so yeah.
Or what about even Tony Braxton and the Braxtons?
Oh yeah.
You know, like, and right now they blowing up because of some.
So what did they say in the movie? It was kind of like that, right? Or was it a movie? The movie. It was a movie about them.
Braxtons?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Tony Braxton did. I think it was it Unbreak My Heart or whatever. She had like a little biopic at some point.
Yeah, and it was like the sisters were jealous, I think, in that film or whatever.
Yeah. That was basically because, you know, if for those of you who don't know, like the Braxtons were all one group with Tony in the group. And then when Babyface in LA met them as a group, they didn't want the group. They only wanted Tony. And then Tony took the opportunity and she was like, okay, I'll bring my sisters along when I can. And then the sisters were singing backup for her for a while. And then other stuff happened and, you know, trouble ensued. But like now, if you watch their different, because, you know, they've been on reality TV for a long time now. And so a lot of the family secrets have spilled out and spilled over. One of the things that some of the sisters or the discussion points are that Tamar, who's the youngest one, and Tony, who's the oldest, that those were the two who were considered to have the most singing talent, the most musical talent. And the other sisters could sing, but they were the background. Like, you cannot be the front ground. These two right here. These are the promising ones. And that has to be a hard position to be in. And I think we all think of something where it was something we wanted and we were just not the best at it. That, you know, just magnify that by that person being in your family. That's hard.
Yeah, but even what if it's not siblings? Like, you could have another superstar. You got Michael Jackson and Prince. Those comparisons were always made. Michael Jackson was clearly the bigger star.
Yeah.
And then Prince, he got his super fans, but, you know, people just like, he's more talented because of, you know, he's an instrumentalist and all that stuff, right? Like, Michael Jackson can't hold a musical light to Prince, as people think. But then you have Prince, who has that, and then people like, you know, maybe jazz artists and stuff.
You can't do that. He wouldn't.
Yeah, he's like, oh, his stuff is all simple, and you know what I'm saying? We do complex things.
Well,
here.
you and I had a conversation recently about who was the better pianist, Aretha Franklin or
Alicia Keys.
Yeah. And go to the comments, y'all. Which do you all think, if you know both of them and their piano stylings? And I was surprised at your answer.
Why were you surprised?
Because you're such a fan of Alicia Keys.
Yeah. Well, I'm not one of those delusional fans. I think, Aretha Franklin's a better pianist.
But I also think, well, you play the piano, which I think gives you the keys to, literally and figuratively, right? To understanding what it takes to do that and to be able to better assess, you know, what is good, what is not good, you know, all of that, right? Because I think that from the outside looking in, for instance, I don't play the piano. And so I can only assess it from what sounds good to me, what I enjoy experiencing, right? Versus what it takes to actually be able to play in that manner.
I never thought that I would get to say this anywhere publicly, but what does it mean when I think an artist is the best artist or a good artist, right? Because you could have super talented people, you got Minnie Riperton and stuff and do whatever, but I like Mariah Carey more, right? And I think she is the greatest because there's a bar for each thing, right? She can sing, but also I like her songs. You know what I'm saying? I like Alicia Keys' songs better than possibly Aretha Franklin's songs. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's the difference. Like Minnie Riperton, I may like 2 songs. When I say like, I mean.
Well, and then there's technical,
really like.
There's technical talent that has to do with what that bar is according to established norms, right? Oh, if you sing opera, you need to sing this way. If you play jazz, if you do, then this is how it's done, that bar, versus people who may deviate from that bar. One that we laugh about all the time is Jessie Reyez. Because I don't know, I can't say why, I do like her. So I like quite a few of her songs, but I like her. I like what she's doing. I like the level of delusion that she had to have to decide that she was going to go do this. And in some ways, you would hear, actually, this is what the singer Tim's, is she Afrobeats? Is Tim's Afrobeats? I think maybe. I'm no expert on there, but at any rate, so Tim's, is an African singer and writer. And she said that when she told her family that she was going to be singing and writing music, they were like, "You going to be singing?" Yeah. And this is her family. Right. They were like, yeah, no. But Tim's was, so there's this aspect of being, as we would term it, maybe delusional enough, but then it comes across. But I'm never going to say that Jessie Reyez is the vocalist that Whitney Houston was, but that's not even the point. That's not even the point.
Yeah, and if you take Alicia Keys and Aretha Franklin, so let's say Alicia Keys or Aretha Franklin is a better pianist and Aretha Franklin is a better singer. Mm-hmm. But I think that Alicia Keys is a better artist because I like the songs that Alicia Keys put out. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how I just look at it.
Well, she had something to do with her songs. But let me say this, too.
Well,
what about the fact that her best work was done with Cheri Brothers, and that without Cheri Brothers, something was lost?
The body of work is there. So that's all I go by.
Something was lost. And I mean, much the same with Mariah Carey and some of her better songs, although she did similar things with different producers and co-writers. Like when you look at, I don't remember the name of the guy. Like with some of the earlier songs that she had, then versus later when she went with JD and, and then just like totally exploded even more, right?
Oh, yeah.
But to me, I think it's just the artistry and how it touches you, because the art, it doesn't have to be sophisticated. It doesn't have to. Haven't you heard people? And one guy who I think, Bill Withers is Bill Withers. So technically his voice is so captivating to me. But if I want to put it against the technical bar and be like, oh, is this the most beautiful male voice? Is this the most? Right? No, it's like not this. But there's just something about it that I can't even put my finger on that is a special sauce that some people have. Yeah. And it just makes them amazing.
And Bill Withers has the best songs in the 70s.
Oh, yeah. And so that's helpful. And so a great song goes a long way. And then I also, on the flip side of that, I see people like Jade Nova, who has such an amazing voice. Like I look every time I look at her, I'm like, she should be way more famous than she is. In her most YouTube videos are with her husband playing keyboards and her singing other people's songs. And I'm like, this is clearly a song choice issue. This is, you need to be, you need a great, you need a songwriter, and I know she writes some of her own stuff, and I'm not trying to slight her. I'm just saying that
it's taste, right?
Yeah. And you know what? We've learned this because we are artists in a few different ways and in genres, that what you want to sing about isn't always what the demand is for.
Right. Or just your style and everything, right? Just like the great jazz artists that nobody's listening to jazz. Nobody's listening to your stuff. Everybody's listening to Taylor Swift.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, they, quote, have better songs for most people or for more people.
But you know what I've learned? I've learned either you want to be popular or you want to feed your spirits, feed your soul.
Hey, some people could do both, right?
And some people are lucky, but I do think it's rare. But some people are lucky enough to be able to do both. But I think most people will have to choose.
I think most people who get popular are doing what they want to do, right? So when if I come up and I'm listening to New Jack Swing, and then I make New Jack Swing, right? Then in some aspect, right, besides with the label and stuff, I get to make that thing.
True.
And then blow up with that thing.
You know who else I think about? The artist Pink. A lot of you guys don't know because you know Pink as more of like a pop artist. But when Pink came out, she was on LaFace Records, LA and Babyface. And she was a white artist, a white R&B artist. And I think her main song was like, There You Go. And they used to always play it on BET and stuff. And she was singing in a very... it was R&B. That's what she was singing when she came out. And I don't feel like she wanted to do that, but I think she wanted to be famous. And I feel vindicated by that, by when you look at what she gravitated toward once she got bigger and was able to make her own choices about, the music.
Well,
that
maybe
she
not
do.
about being famous, but about being able to do the thing that you want to do, right?
Well, that.
If I'm a singer, I want to sing, and the only way I could get in, they told me I got to sing
Okay,
R&B.
so yes, I would agree with that. Yes. So I'm not saying that she just was like, no, but I agree. She wanted to sing and this was the opportunity. And so she did this. But I don't think that she wanted to sing R&B.
There are some people who want to be famous and popular, and that's just what they do.
Yeah. And actually I take that back, because I would say that the people who simply want to be famous and popular, they don't care how they get it, and they usually don't pay much attention to the craft. And I don't think that that's actually Pink. But she definitely, I don't feel like wanted to do R&B. I think that was just the opportunity.
Did Michael Jackson want to be famous?
I think Michael Jackson just never had a choice, honestly, because it
stopped.
started so young that then it's like, what else do I do?
This is what I do.
And, all of the normal things that happen to people, like searching for meaning in your life and and how can I help people? Then furthermore, if he had the heart that people say he did, then it would be like, look at all these people who depend on me. And if I don't do this anymore, then... that means people don't eat. They don't get checks. They don't, and that tends to, we've heard that as a consideration from a lot of famous people who are like, hey, my whole family was on payroll or whatever. So, I think it happened so young for him that it was never a contemplation that he wouldn't continue to be famous. But I do think that there are people who get famous at one point and then, then they have normal lives later, but none of them probably were as famous as Michael Jackson.
Right. So will the movie flop? So one thing, I can't remember what movie it was, but just recently, I think it's the one with the Wayans, Marlon Wayans.
Oh yeah, him.
Where basically a lot of people went out to watch it the first week and then come back and be like, it's trash, and then nobody watched it after that.
We covered that on this channel.
Could that possibly happen with a film about Michael Jackson? Because, it's kind of like Tupac movie. Like, okay, yeah, I liked it. But still, a lot of people didn't like it. When it's Michael Jackson, you see it and you disappointed because you still have this idea of Michael Jackson that you had since the 80s.
So when you say flop, because we've had this debate about what flop means.
Flop, it could make $100 million in a week, but then after that, just basically trail off because of bad reviews. Because I think the first weekend is gonna be crazy. I think so. In a sense, that's not gonna flop.
I think it's gonna make a lot of money, and I don't think it will be. Well, I don't know how much they spent on this movie. So that's also gonna matter, right? Because it would need to turn a profit for it not to be a flop. But I think it's gonna make money. But the question is whether this will be a movie that people look back on and go, "This is the definitive Michael Jackson story," or whether it just fades to black like the Whitney Houston movie and nobody. I don't even. What was the name of that? I Want to Dance with Somebody, Whitney. I don't even know, and I'm a super fan.
Ain't no way. I think it's I Want to Dance with Somebody, but no way. They say $155 million budget.
That's what they spent on the film. That's what they claim.
That's the budget.
I don't believe that.
I don't know if they spent the. Why not? You haven't
because
seen it
I
yet.
felt look. Just the edits, the rewrites alone, going back to the drawing board, 4 hours worth of movie. All the people who were in it, the big names who were in it.
So you think more?
I think they went over budget.
$155 million? That's a lot of money.
I know it's a lot of money.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if they went over budget. Go to the comments, y'all. Let us know what you think. But I don't think it's gonna flop. I do not think it's gonna flop. I just.
So is Breaking Even not flopping? I think they expect good profits.
So I don't now. Good profits. I think this could go the way of the movies, like you said. That first couple weeks, but everybody gonna be hitting the theater. But then when the word gets out, if it's not good, then it's gonna trail off. But then there might be people who just love Michael Jackson are like, I got to see for myself. But the more I think what will happen is if the reviews are bad, people are like, hey, I'm gonna wait for it on streaming.
Yeah, exactly, because we have that now.
Yep. See, we didn't used to have that the same way in the past.
And you had to pay for the rentals. So yeah.
Pay extra, right?
Yeah, you weren't going to wait to go rent the tape if you didn't think you would like the movie.
Yeah.
But now you already pay for the service. You'd be like, I'll just wait till they stream it.
Exactly.
But crazy.
So that's what we think from this. How did we talk for almost an hour on a 1 minute teaser that didn't give us much?
Out.
Yes, just wait till the movie comes out and we will give you our unadulterated opinion of this film.
If you made it this far, type Shaman in the comments so we'll know you're one of the real ones who stick around to the end.
And be sure to check out one of the videos that's on the screen right now. And also visit axiom.app where you'll find all of our recent videos in one place. And there are links back to YouTube where you'll be able to watch them here. And also visit axiom.app for our merch.